I'm back with another worst deal in music industry history video. For today, we are covering a deal that has been talked about for over a decade now, and that involves a deal done with Public Enemy's Chuck D. For those not too familiar with Chuck D, he is a pioneer in hip-hop, first forming the group Public Enemy alongside Flava Flav in 1985 with their debut album Yo, Bum Rush the Show, released in 1987. By the time of their debut release, Public Enemy was already signed under Def Jam and would release 5 studio albums under the label. Chuck D and Public Enemy at their core are not afraid to speak out against societal issues or issues going on within themselves. They built their career from standing up for what is right and being vocal about it. As for Chuck D, he has been vocal about his issues with record labels taking advantage of artists, but more specifically, I wanted to dive into the 2011 lawsuit. In this 2011 lawsuit, other artists were going against Def Jam for improper payments on royalties in the new streaming era. At the time when Chuck D and Public Enemy signed their deal with Def Jam, streaming of course was not a thing, so it was not incorporated into their contracts. Chuck D's lawyer, who was also representing Eminem in this case, went on to talk about the group being paid out only 25% of total royalties owed from digital streaming. The lawyer would argue that Public Enemy should receive 50% of net revenue from digital sales, only receiving about 18% in actuality. With record labels being a major part in music industry history, this problem would catch up to many artists who made names before the streaming era. A new streaming era brought in new rules, and we are still seeing changes to those rules today. This lawsuit in 2011 would be resolved with Def Jam ordered to pay out $11.5 million to artists involved in the lawsuit, as well as bumping up royalties coming in from streaming. Always good to see artists win back against labels. To make this more interesting, Public Enemy and Chuck D actually signed back with Def Jam in 2020. Is it surprising that they re-signed? No, the issues that Chuck D had were resolved in some ways, which clears the air. And in 2020, they had more negotiating power, being pioneers to hip-hop, and could have gone in many other directions. Still, as Chuck D said, he feels back at home with Def Jam, which is where new Public Enemy and Chuck D music will continue to be released from. So is Chuck D signing with Def Jam the worst deal in music industry history? I don't think so. If it was, he wouldn't have re-signed in 2020 when there were options to go elsewhere. Even though Chuck did have major issues with them in the past, being able to resolve them was beneficial for both parties now working together again. The streaming era brought new challenges that needed to be tackled, and Chuck D was the spokesperson again for the people, in this case artists, on what needed to be changed going forward. I am sure as music evolves, new issues with labels will present themselves, similar to what happened with music streaming. This deal may be an older topic, but still something worth talking about. Not every deal will stay bad, some things just need to be worked through. What are your thoughts on how the streaming era changed things for artists and listeners? Let's talk in the comments below. Thanks for watching, have a great day.